I'm driving down the 101 in San Francisco, and there's this big billboard because Adobe just acquired EchoSign. But the billboard said, sign, send, done. And I was thinking, oh, their marketing team thinks that that's the value prop because it's so simple. You just sign it, you send it, it's done. But I was like, no, that's not how deals work. We know the deal's not done until the check clears, until the money's in the bank. What kind of irked me. Yes, I want you to sign, but you signing is just an invitation for me to invoice you. That's
Yeah.
just the start of our relationship. Like payment is what starts relationships.
Welcome to the CTRL ALT GAB podcast, where we sit down with tech founders to break down how they scale, pivot, and grow. I'm your host, Gabrielle Walthers. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the CTRL ALT GAB podcast. We are joined today by Marty Ringlein, and he is the co-founder of Agree.com. We are going to be discussing his founder journey today and looking at scaling from his perspective. We're really excited to have you, Marty. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So to kick things off, I want you to speak to the early days of Agree.com. What led you to be a founder of this specific company? What inspired you to be solving the problem that you're solving? And just walk us through your origin story.
I'm a big proponent of, there's always exceptions to the rule, but most founders, your user number one, you're kind of building for your own pain point. You've experienced something. No difference here with Agree, where I wanted this to exist in the world. I just started putting my product hat on and said, hey, if I were to solve this problem, how would I build it? And then you go down that rabbit hole deep enough, and you just end up starting to build it. But it starts actually, I'm driving down the 101 in San Francisco, and there's this big billboard because Adobe just acquired EchoSign. Now it's Adobe Sign. But the billboard said, sign, send, done. And I was just thinking, oh, their marketing team thinks that that's the value prop because it's so simple. You just sign it, you send it, it's done. But I was like, no, that's not how deals work. We know the deal's not done until the check clears, until the money's in the bank. And so it's weird to me that Adobe thinks it's done. And I just couldn't get out of my head that they're wrong. I wanted to call the marketing person that approved that copy and be like, you're wrong. But I just started thinking, oh, well, why does Adobe think that? It's like, well, Adobe doesn't do payments. Adobe isn't a money mover. It's like, Pandadocs doesn't do that. Google can't do it. DocuSign doesn't do it. And I was like, that's really strange that none of them can actually complete the agreement. Like all they can do is collect a signature. And I was like, that's really interesting. And I have a long history on the fintech side. So I just started thinking about it from a payments perspective. Hey, what if I built a payments company on top of e-signature as opposed to forcing payments into a pre-existing e-signature company? And then it was this immediate unlock where I started looking at the data, and it turns out that the number one person in a company who sends a legal document for signature is not a lawyer, it's a sales rep, and that's a sales contract. And I just thought, well, that means that at the end of most signatures, somebody has to pay somebody money. So combining e-signature with invoicing and payments, like that totally makes sense, especially in a B2B context. So it's just one of those things where it felt so obvious and so wrong that it was disjointed and broken that I had to go build it myself.
That's so interesting. And that's a very unique origin story of being like, well, there was theoretically other folks, quote unquote, solving this problem, but not really paying attention to the whole story or really conceptualizing the correct life cycle of the process.
And that's the word you just used, life cycles, what kind of irked me. I just started learning more about DocuSign and their business, and it's called a CLM, a contract lifecycle management platform. And I was like, that's not actually what I care about. Yes, I want you to sign, but you signing is just an invitation for me to invoice you. That's just the start of our relationship. What I really want is contract revenue management. I want to know from signature to invoice to payment, that's the life cycle I really care about. Because again, you and I we're not going to get started. You don't get that apartment until you put the deposit down. You don't start working with that freelancer until you've made the first payment. Payment is what starts relationships. And I was just like, wow, yes, the life cycle is totally different here. And they've been thinking about it wrong all these years.
Yeah, and the emphasis is on the wrong place.
Exactly.
The priority is on getting the signature, but that really doesn't mean anything. It's really just the trigger point for when payment can be invoiced and collected.
Yeah, well, and for any of the, founders listening and entrepreneurs is, one of the most dangerous things when you're fundraising, especially early stage, and you send a safe agreement out to an investor to invest in your company. Just because they sign, they have no legal obligation to put that money in. They can back out at any point. Like that signature is almost useless. It's a formality. It's like a handshake. It's a high five that yes, we're going to do this, but that investor is not in until that money has been wired into your account. And then it's no takebacks. But I think seeing it from the founder side, from the venture capital side, realizing that like, wow, the power of the signature, like it's not as powerful as we presume it to be. We think it's this like ironclad thing that holds up in court, but the reality is that most people can get out of a signature. But what you can't get out of is once you've moved that money, no
Yeah.
takebacks.
Yeah, that's very interesting. For my next question, how long have you guys been in operation? When was your go to market? And how long have you been live so far?
Yeah, so we went live and kicked off go to market on September 4th of last year. So it's coming up on 1 year. I'm going to be back in San Francisco for HubSpot's inbound. So we're going to do a little celebration. But we formed the company earlier that February, just an idea. And we had to go build a prototype, test it, take it to market. And then we actually launched the first version in September. And that had invoicing, e-signature, and payments all in one. And then we hit the ground running pretty hard, pretty fast. We can get into any of the GTM tactics if you want to, but it was 1,000 users in the first 30 days, which I was pretty proud of because like at the end of the day, it's e-signature. Like not a lot of people have something to sign right now. So, it is a little tough to go track down your friends and your network to find 1,000 people who like can use your product right away. But what surprised us is 60 days later, it had 10x to 10,000 users. And it's like, whoa, people really like this thing. We put it on Product Hunt. It won Product of the Day, which we're like, oh my God. Like, again, e-signature, especially this time last year, AI is still pretty hot. So to not be an AI native product, kind of hard to win Product Hunt these days. But then we got Product Hunt of the week and then of the month. It just kept exploding in terms of interest level. It's like, wow, people are kind of frustrated. I didn't realize the level of frustration. And now it's 4x to a little over 40,000 users, which has been awesome because it's just been a year. So we're pretty stoked with those numbers.
Yeah, that's incredible. Did you find yourself needing to do a lot of educating the market on understanding this issue and how it affects them directly? But I'm going to go with probably not. It sounds like people were very well aware of this issue, probably suffering in silence about it. And then encountering your product, they were able to see, oh, what were all these other Adobes of the world doing when there's very clearly this gap based on the traction that you're able to get and the tidal wave effect of your increase in users speaks to that not being the case, which it makes your job a lot easier.
Yeah, we definitely got a big cheat there where I'm not introducing net new behavior or anything new into the market.
Yeah.
This is like a bundling, unbundling, rebundling play where everyone that I go after that, agrees really built for in terms of the B2B side, they already pay somebody for e-signature, they pay somebody for invoicing, and then they're paying someone to do their payment processing.
Hmm.
And so we just say, hey, bring it all together, make the e-signature, the invoicing totally free, and then just monetize. So really the disruption here, it wasn't, I mean, there's a lot of really exciting and interesting tech behind the scenes, but it's less of a technological disruption and more of a monetization pricing model disruption on the players like DocuSign. And that's what people hate the most is they just hate paying for DocuSign. Like
Hmm.
what am I paying to sign? Like it makes no
Yeah.
sense. We're just like, we agree.
Yep. And I found myself asking that same question where I'm like, literally all I want to do is place my signature on this document. How is there a paywall? You're not doing anything. I have the ability to sign my own name. This is not what you should be charging for. And then you break into the scene where you're like, you pay us, but we're actually going to do the service for you in totality, not just allow you to sign your own document with your own name, which
That's right.
when you say it out
100%.
loud, that point blank sounds actually insane, but it's
But
one of
it's
those things
wild that
that
DocuSign is like, $20 billion business. It's been around for 22 years, publicly traded. It's wild.
yeah.
I think we were the start of this conversation of, hey, signature's a commodity. No one's going to pay for it anymore. But we're not going to be the end of this conversation. Like Google Docs has free e-signature now. Preview on the Mac, you can sign within it. I think we're all going to realize that it was silly that we ever paid DocuSign for anything. And that's
Yeah.
why, like, at the end of it for us, we love the e-signature side, but it's not our bread and butter. It's a better product, quick plug for us, more modern. You've got a lot more AI capabilities where we auto detect fields and all that nonsense. But it's really the invoicing and the payment side of it
Mhm.
where our customers find the greatest value. But this
Mhm.
idea that the DocuSign side of the product, like DocuSign is, they're kind of toast and but they're so big, it's going to take a while. This is kind of
Mhm.
like a BlackBerry thing. They're not going to just disappear overnight. It'll be a slow decline. But over the next, 5, 6 years, you're going to look back and be like, oh, wow, like what happened to Blockbuster and Kodak is happening to DocuSign.
Yeah, yeah, and, like, it's kind of crazy that that hasn't happened yet. I think it's one of those things where it's so mainstream that this is just how this offering is presented. People become almost like, "Well, this is the only option that's out there in the market, so this is just something we're gonna have to make do with," and then coming into contact with Agree being like, "Oh, actually, just kidding. We can, scrap that process entirely and, move over to something that actually is going to do the real work that DocuSign and those other softwares really aren't even touching."
Oh, 100%. Another like good founder advice is you'll always say, focus on the things that are quote unquote not sexy. But I think they're just saying like, hey, some areas are very crowded. When I think about like e-signature, there's no Silicon Valley, Stanford grad that's like, I'm going to go fix e-signature. So it's gone unloved for a number of years. And the last person to ever even come after DocuSign was PandaDocs. And that's like 13 years ago. So it's over a decade since somebody really stepped up and said, hey, we're going to, create something net new here. That's also made it super easy, like cheat code for us.
Yeah, yeah. There is massive opportunity in this underserved market by people not thinking that it's a big issue, or the unsexy industry not getting the attention it deserves leads to massive opportunity for folks because you're solving a problem that is pervasive, touches pretty much anyone that has a job or lives a life, today, and saying it doesn't really need to be this way. Just no one has come forward with a solution yet.
We're also the byproduct of there's a few companies that really shined high during COVID because it just reminded them how important. So Zoom was a big one. Everyone had to go Zoom. Everyone worked from home. But then DocuSign, like the ability to do business and contracts remotely, always existed. But the importance of it went through the roof. And
Mhm.
DocuSign, saw a huge spike in their market cap. But it also made it easier for us when we went out to do our own fundraise, where it's like, okay, everyone they would have been less excited about e-signature pre-COVID, but now
Yes.
post-COVID, it's like, oh, DocuSign's hot. They're a big business. Like it has been the story I tell about, it's been a decade since someone's really come for them. Yes, it's time. It really helped.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it makes people more aware of they're interacting with the problem way more often through COVID. Because, for example, for me, when COVID started, I was working for the federal government of Canada. And a big thing was that digital signatures were just not an option. Everything has to be physical signature. That's the only way things can be secure, all that stuff. COVID happened. Obviously, that's not possible. Everyone is at home. And in Canada, too, our restrictions were strict. Don't leave your house, don't walk around the park, don't do anything. You can't leave. You can't leave. We were like, okay, well, nothing was secure enough and nothing was kind of correct. And then we had all of these paywalls for all of these services because we were signing such a high volume of documents. And that actually was a problem in my professional life that was brought up many times a day. And we didn't even get to the payment piece of it, but just the inaccessibility of these programs to do just the most simple thing like sign your name led to a disruption in process, delays in getting projects off the ground. I think that for a lot of people, it's the first time that they've interacted with that issue in a way that could actually stagnate their work and the flow of their projects. I think timing wise is quite perfect and probably led to your ability to get the 10x users that in just a year, which is crazy. I actually have a question on that. So from 0 to like, I think you said 40,000 users in technically under a year is insane. So did you have any scaling challenges that came with that massive tidal wave of users, or did you have to do a big pivot really swiftly to mitigate operationally the challenges that came up with growing that swiftly? Just walk us through what that looked like internally for you and your team.
So not from a technical perspective, because the team that we have, we're small teams, only 8 of us, but we've been working together for years. And our CTO, Evan, I've known him for 15 years now. He's worked for me. We've worked together as co-founders before. He built a lot of the infrastructure at Brex, so he knows infra at sort of scale. He knows it at the top of the game. So from the beginning, it was the quote unquote move fast and break things mantra of a startup, but think about scale and be prepared. But we do it in tranches. So when we first come out of the gate, like we're not building to be ready to go international and support 1 million users, but out of the gate, it's like, hey, let's make sure that we can handle 10,000, and then let's make sure we can handle 100,000. And so we always think about it in a 10x capacity. So day one, it just needs to handle like 1 user, right? And then 10, and then 1,000, and then 100,000, then 1 million. That's the way we've always thought about it. And we're always, 2 or 3 steps ahead of where our usage is going to be. So we've never had an issue there. The only issue that honestly we get is the more users you get on the platform, the more unique the use cases become. And so we build for a very particular ICP and a very particular niche demographic that we know this first prototype, first MVP, first V1 are all going to be perfect for. But as more people learn and they come on, they're like, hey, you don't have XYZ. And I'm like, yeah, that's a totally obvious feature. It's embarrassing that we're even talking about it and I don't have it, but it's only been a few months and I've got a whole long list of things to build. It's coming, I promise. And it's painful as a founder to have somebody find your product, love the value prop, get in, sign up, create an account, start using it, and then tell you that it's not a good fit, right? You want to do everything you can to keep them. But I look at just the grand scheme of it all, just say 4 people who are having a problem against 40,000 who are
Hmm.
seemingly using it well. You've got to just breathe, suck it in and say like, hey, maybe it's not right for you right now. And let me come back to you when we have that feature. I think that's the hardest thing with the scaling is just knowing that there's some folks where it's not perfect and it's not perfect in like the most obvious ways. And it just seems so embarrassing when they say like, hey, I can't believe you don't have this feature. I get it,
Hmm.
man. And then they'll say something like, well, DocuSign has it because I go on saying how I'm better than DocuSign. I'm like, that's the 22-year head start they have on us. Yes,
Yeah.
they have a
You're like,
lot of
I'd hope
features
they
we don't
do.
have.
What if they've been doing this whole time if they didn't? Yeah.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
have a lot of things DocuSign doesn't have, but yes, there are some very big, like a fun one that we just released the other day is signing order. So you've decided you're going to send a contract, but your CEO, you want them to sign last. And that's a very common thing in contract management. And we just released it. So it's been a year and we haven't had it. No one's needed it because most teams that send out, it's probably 4 or 5 folks and they don't care what order it gets signed as long as it gets signed and it gets signed quickly. But now we're starting to move a little bit more up market. The companies we work with are getting a little more mature. They want login with Microsoft now. So we just released that too. It's again, super easy to build. It takes a day to build. It actually took 45 minutes to build my login with Microsoft. But I always say, hey, it takes a day to build it. If I got a list of 365 things that only take a day to build, that's a year of things to build. It's going to take a while.
Definitely. I'm curious too, like speaking to the technical aspect, is what does the workload look like for you after folks are onboarded and they're using the software and they're using the program? Is there any like additional supports that your team implements? Like from an operational side, would having that increase in users impact your non-technical team in any way? Or is a lot of the heavy lifting just getting them all set up, making sure that, they're not having any issues with the usage and stuff like that? Or is there some more support that's needed later in the life cycle of those clients? Or is it for your ops team really just a matter of making sure your customer service is really good and making sure that technically it's working, the way it needs to?
Yeah, so the product is pretty self-serve. I mean, you can go sign up, create an account totally free. So if you're listening, go ahead and give it a shot. It's pretty intuitive, so you don't really need a lot of human intervention. I'd say from our side, what are the pains that we feel from a support perspective as we scale? When you have a platform that operates like a two-sided marketplace where you have one user who can collect money from another user, you're just ripe for fraud. And so as we get more users anyway, we have to be better at our fraud game. So in the beginning, yeah, I can manually just spot when something's fraud and I can kick them off. But then when there's a lot more usage, I can't catch everything. And so we've got to have automated systems that do that. And then more practically, like on the UX UI side, there's some things where we move so fast. I was just talking to somebody on Twitter where they're like, oh, I wish you guys had templates. And I was like, we absolutely have templates. That's one of the things I'm most proud of. And he's like, well, I can't find it anywhere in the platform. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. I know exactly where it is, but it's hidden behind this little 3 dot icon. You got to click it and then
Mm.
make template, or it's in another little drop down. So I know how to get to it, but I could see where like it's not that intuitive. And so it's like, okay, guys, it's time. We'll call it back to the basics or clean up. We'll go back through the product again and say, hey, things, we built it, the feature exists, but like we didn't service it very well. Let's go and reassess because now we're watching the usage and people are using templates more actively. Because usually for our most active users, I push them onto templates. I re-engage with them. But when I want you to do it from a self-serve perspective, which is happening more now, it's time to make it surface level higher.
Definitely. Yeah, that's very interesting. I think too, when you're at the forefront of creating the thing, you're like, oh well, yeah, it's clear, everything's present there. But if people can't see it or access it, and there's that level of inaccessibility, then you're like, cool, well, this is just hiding in the shadows, and no one can find it. So what's the point?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we talk about this as a team all the time. Whenever there's a customer support issue or like, oh, that's embarrassing, like wouldn't change a thing. If I had a time machine and go back, I'd build it the exact same way we build it because I think that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to, go fast, break things, don't make it perfect. Perfection's enemy of good. And then listen to your customer constantly. I take every email that comes in brutally seriously and then change accordingly. Hey, make his template more visible, again, another thing that takes less than a day. Let's just add it to the list. And let's knock it out really fast.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And I think if you're able to collect that information from your users, go back, iterate and test and improve it, then not only are you creating a better product, but you're also understanding your ICP a lot more and their actual issues and the exact use cases that your users are experiencing. As opposed to, like, if you have it perfect out the gate, then there's not really an opportunity for you to understand the group that you're serving in a deeper way. A lot of that has to come from that type of feedback. So,
Yeah, and we're big proponents of, I think the most dangerous thing you can do is you should listen to your customer, but I don't think you should react every time your customer says something because you will get pulled in many different directions. You'll lose focus, and then these
yeah.
random conversations will end up dictating your priority list, which shouldn't happen. Try to make it pretty objective versus subjective and quantitative, where we've got this rule, especially from a sales side. If I lose 3 customers that are within my ICP to a feature request, that's the moment at which we start taking it really seriously. A good one is HubSpot integration. People like HubSpot, they use HubSpot. I get on a call with somebody, they're like, hey, love it. I'm totally in, but you don't have HubSpot. Like, it's a deal breaker for me. I'm out. Okay. It's not a good fit for you right now. Like,
Mhm.
that sucks. I wish we had it, but I'm not going to go build HubSpot just to land this one deal. I lose them. I have that conversation again with another customer. I lose them too. I lose the third one. Then I say to the team, hey, we just lost 3 in a certain period of time. I think it's time. I've already scoped out HubSpot. We know exactly what it's going to take. We know exactly how we're going to do it. We know exactly how long it'll take. Let's just put an engineer on it right now and let's make it a top priority. And then we do it. And I don't lose the fourth one. And then I start going after that target audience that specifically uses HubSpot. And I use it as leverage to build our user base even more.
Yeah. And like the value of that back and forth and that education that your users can give you is invaluable. And then if you expand your technical offering or add another integration, those are going to be so much more intentional and effective because you're operating on this pile of information that you're able to gather from your users, which
Well, I
I
think
think,
you bring up a good point too. Is like work is not HubSpot integration. The work is integrations at large, and we're going to do HubSpot. Now it's, hey, if we do this right, and again we do it quickly, because we already had QuickBooks, we can do just about any integration pretty effortlessly now that we've got all of the components in place. Because we really just need a way for us to send and receive data back to our database when it comes with these partners. But like Salesforce will take a few days, and so that'll be up next after HubSpot. We just make sure that we're being really smart and strategic with all of this decision making.
definitely. And so you've obviously had a ton of success in the early days with user acquisition. I'm curious to see if you've seen that kind of steep uphill kind of plateau, and like when do you anticipate it's going to kind of flatten out a little bit? What's your kind of plan of attack to re-engage and to get that growth, continuing or starting up again with regards to finding and getting in front of your ICP, getting users signed up? What does getting in front of your ICP look like right now beyond what you have done to get the 4 users that you have now?
Yeah, no, I love the way you framed the question because that's exactly how it plays out, where there's massive uptake and growth, and then at some point it does plateau out. And there's 2 reasons why. One, there was just nothing ever there, or 2, you do it intentionally. And for us, it was intentional, where we stop moving a lot of our energy and even spend on the ads marketing side from high growth on the user side to more intentional, like targeting very specific user groups. That was a very intentional decision that we made. And so the growth is still consistent. It's just not as aggressive where it's like, 10x in 60 days. Now it's how do we think through getting in front of that very targeted group in a very methodical way who we know gets the most out of the platform. And then more practically, how do we think about things like growing revenue beyond just growing user growth? And where does that revenue come from? What are the actions that are needed? Who is the cohort of users that best take those actions? And then how do we highly target that specific user base? So instead of 40,000 users, what I really want are the next 40 power users. And then after that, the next 400 power users. And those 400 will be economically much more meaningful to the company than the long tail of 40,000.
And so getting those power users, which I imagine is at a paid subscription levels, adding to your ARR and stuff like that. And do you have a plan of attack? Do you have outbound that's in the works right now? What is that looking for? Are you starting with your warm book and then going to cold outreach? What is that plan? Even if it hasn't been enacted yet, what does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, yeah. And again, I love the framing because it's exactly how it plans out. Where it's some things that have not been executed yet, but everything that we're fully cognizant and aware of. Where we're at right now is we activated the features in which we can monetize from. So it's like, okay, that's great. So again, at some point we're pre-revenue, and then now it's like, hey, we're ready to start bringing on the users, and we have the features in which we can monetize. So let's go find that user base, and we start with a little bit of like guerrilla marketing, little conference sponsorship, just getting the brand out there, getting people to know about us and seeing who organically comes in through those funnels, like inbound. And the inbound hit us hard and fast, the same way the user growth numbers did, where there was just so many high qualified leads coming in through the inbound channel, where it took all the oxygen out of the room in the best possible way. And so all we spent, the last like 2 months on is just demo calls constantly, calendar book back to back. I mean, that's how big the inbound list was. And we've had some, pretty good success metrics from where that inbound came from. But it meant that it deprioritized some obvious things. Like we don't do a lot of outbound today. But that's all going to stop. September, we'll start doing more outbound campaigns. Another thing that we don't do that, again, just seems weird. Like, why don't you do it other than priority is re-engagement within the app. There's a lot of users who use us for e-signature. They send contracts in which somebody gets an invoice afterwards, but they don't use us for invoicing. We've never even told them that we have invoicing. When I talk to them, they're like, oh, this is awesome. I didn't even know you had invoicing. You're like, Marty, put up a banner that says we have invoicing, or you make the invoicing like, I was pointing to a million things we can do. And we totally get it. Just, again, priorities. It's, inbound was tactic number one. Outbound is priority number two. Re-engagement within the actual platform of our active users is number three. And then number four is partnerships. Where can we get some distribution partnerships where there's a lot of folks who give out legal documents and templates for free. We want them giving those out as templates within the Agree platform. We want to drive more users. We want to get in front of more people like accountants and bookkeepers who provide value adds to customers that meet our ICP, where they're constantly recommending them software to use. So if there's an accountant who loves doing all the books in QuickBooks, but knows their customers hate QuickBooks invoicing, get them to be like, hey, use Agree invoicing because it integrates nicely into QuickBooks, makes my life easier, and I think you're going to like it, and it's free. And so from an accounting bookkeeping side, like keep costs down.
Yeah, it's super smart to think about it in regard to that phased approach, where you don't want to just, okay, cool, we're flattening out, let's hit the ground with absolutely everything all at once, because too much growth too fast is a different kind of problem. You want to be able to make sure that you're doing things intentionally with purpose in a way that works for your current operations, your current technical offering, your current client base, and your use case and stuff like that too.
I'm also just a fan of like, don't boil the ocean. If one thing's going
I've never
well,
heard that before. I love that. Don't boil the
yeah,
ocean. That's great.
you'll never do it. And so you're just trying to do too many things at once. I mean, try a bunch of things, but if one thing is working really well, like for whatever reason, as soon as we went out of the gate, this inbound pipeline was astronomically high, where I told my co-founder, Will, as he's reporting back the numbers, I'm like, no, two things have to be true. Either your data's wrong or this is fraud. Like it's too big of a number. And we looked into it. It's like, no, he's like, Marty, the number I'm reporting, these are humans that I've already actually talked to. Like I know who these people, this is not, I'm not just reporting back like data from a database. Like, oh, wow, this is insane. But because that was going so well, just double down on that and understand what's happening, where it's coming from, understand what the conversion numbers are like, try to make that process better. And then as that, like all numbers starts to start thinking, okay, we already know where the other outlets are, but how can we take the learnings from that, everything we know that works well in the conversion numbers from the inbound, and how do we apply them to the outbound? And what expectations should we have on conversion from outbound? It's like, okay, so we know what resonates, we know what features people like. So, and then we'll do the same thing with the re-engagement email. So everything we learn from inbound and outbound, we'll make sure that our emails and our sort of in-app messaging is all tailored around the learnings from there. And then same with the partnerships. Let's go after partners where we know align up with everything we learned on the inbound, the outbound, and the re-engagement.
Definitely. Yeah, we're coming up on the end here, but I want to ask you one last question about looking to the future with regards to your phased approach to your growth, with regards to what you're going to do with outbound, your paid subscription, getting set up for that. Beyond those pieces, is there a big benchmark you're looking to hit in the future? I know that we talked about getting those 40 to 400 paid users, but beyond that, is there an ops growth goal you're looking to do? Is there a team expansion coming down the pipe? What does the next phase of growth look like from an operations perspective? Is there a big event you're preparing for? Just walk us through what the future looks like for you, what's coming down the pipe.
I look at the BHAG, if you know this term, big, hairy, audacious goal, but like what is the thing that's really aggressive that's in front of you? And then how do we reverse engineer our way all the way back from that? So the first thing that we want to do is get to $500 million of money moved through the platform. And what that means is that somebody pays somebody money and they do it through Agree. That's where I want to get to. And before I get, but let's make it like that's too big. So before I get to $500 million, let's get to 100 million. Before I get to 100 million, let's get to 10 million. Before I get to 10 million, let's get to a million. Before a million, 100,000. Before I'm not like $1, right? Let's just get $1 moving through the platform. But for us to move money, because that's how we make money, right? We take a small percentage, just like Stripe on any credit card transaction or ACH wire. Same price as Stripe too, for anyone listening. So you'll come on for the payment side. But to move money, the way that we move money, there's an invoice first. You send someone an invoice and then they pay and the money moves, right? So I almost don't care about the 500 million moved. I more care about number of invoices sent. And for invoices to be sent, I need customers that send invoices. And so instead of like invoices being sent, I really care about the right customer, the kind of customer that sends invoices. And so I just need a certain number of customers that do a certain amount of annual revenue, that send a certain amount, because the number of invoices you send is irrelevant. It's more like how much annual revenue do you do? If you do 10 million a year and I want 500 million, right? I just know that's 50. I need 50 customers. I said that 500 million, $500 million sounds like a big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yeah.
50 customers. I just need 50 people. And again, if you're young and you're first time founder, like $50 million in annual revenue sounds like huge, but in the grand scheme of businesses, like, that's what they call a small business. It's like a tiny customer. And there's in the US, there's 30 million of those kind of customers. So of the 30 million, I need 50. I need 50 and I win. It's great. And then that's why, like I talked about the 40 to 400, but like after when I get 500 of these, like we're off to the races, like we're unstoppable. I try to bring it back to its most simplistic thing. So, but before the 50, I just want 5, and then double that to 10, double that to 20. Just keep doubling, and then just focus, and don't be distracted by the big hairy thing. But that's what I'm after from an ops thing. I need lots of money moved, the infrastructure to do it, lots of invoices processed and sent, infrastructure to do that, and then the sales enablement side and onboarding side to get those users, the conversations having with them, the conversions happening, and them onto the platform. The simple things, I mean, they're not simple, but they should be if you have a really great product, is low churn, high retention. Making sure if I do win them, they don't ever leave.
Yeah, that's great. And a subtle theme that's poked its head through various pieces of what you've been able to share is that framing element, where if you conceptualize your next phase of growth as we need to move $5 billion, that's going to sound insane and be very daunting. But reverse engineering it, kind of severing it into these bite-sized pieces, shows you how reasonable it really is and how actionable the steps to get there are. When people have lofty growth goals, and just based on the founder conversations I've had on the show, a lot of people have a hard time with framing because they see the finish line and dealing with it as a singular thing instead of what you explained, where, okay, look back from that point. What activities do you need to do to get there? And in what order do you need to do those things? There's your list of next steps. Deal with that. Deal with the next thing, as opposed to, holy shit, how am I going to get there? That speaks to that mindset piece. But I think that there's a lot of elements of what makes a good founder in a successful business that are on the more qualitative, hard to quantify side of how are you picturing your growth? How are you conceptualizing hitting those next steps? How are you framing it in your mind as a founder with regards to hitting that goal? Because if those pieces aren't aligned, then your task is going to seem impossible. And no one can solve an impossible problems. And I think founders can glean a lot of value from that framing piece and dealing with things in a way that's reasonable and manageable, as opposed to just taking the singular huge task at hand and trying to just get there somehow.
No, I think it's great for our own stress and sanity as founders, but honestly, where it's more important is for anyone that's building a team, that framing for your team to know, like, why are we doing this? Why are we building that feature at this time, at this moment? Why does it have that aggressive of a deadline? Just bring it all the way back. I think just telling them, hey, we have this big audacious goal, like that's not helpful, because it just feels like we're never going to get there. But if you bring it back to its most, like I need 5 friggin' customers, guys, like 5. Like, here's what they need. Here's what I'm hearing on the streets. Like, that's it. Let's just get 5. And then it's nice, because if you get 1 customer and I got to get $500 million, that's too far removed. It's not exciting. But if I'm focused on 5, I just got 1/5 or 20%. This is awesome. Yeah. So
and how motivating is that? Yeah.
Right. Good for you internally, good for your team. good for investors, good for your current investors. If anyone's doing a first round fundraise, what they're going to want to know is, what are you going to do with the money over the next, call it 18, 24 months? You should have some goal. Hey, we're going to get this many users or generate this much revenue. But they want to know, what is the strategy and path to get there. So they're going to want you to take them through this same exercise. Hey, in Q1, we're going to do this. Q2, we're going to do that. And you've shown them methodically and strategically how you're going to get to that 24-month goal of, let's call it, your first million ARR. But like, I'm going to start with this many users and this many customers. It's like, okay, that I get to. Like, you just saying a million ARR, that's what every founder says, or 3 million ARR, because that's the vanity metric. But actually talk me through your plan and let me know that you really understand how you're going to accomplish this.
Yes, what a great point to leave us off on, Marty. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I learned a ton from you, and I'm sure our listeners did as well. I want you to let people know where to find you. If there's anything that folks should keep an eye out coming down the pipe, let us know. I want everyone to be able to find everything they need from this episode. So please share.
Yeah, I mean, first things first, I put my founder hat on, which is my sales hat. So anybody listening to this podcast, let's give them a special treat. So Agree's free on the e-signature invoicing side. But if you want, just email me, marty@agree.com, marty@agree.com. And if you want to use us or try us out for the invoicing side, your first 100,000 in payments will totally waive all the transaction fees for you. So an additional financial incentive for you. And I know for a bunch of folks, like that's a big amount of money, especially if you're taking credit cards. So hit me up. I'll be happy to onboard you personally. It's a great thing about working with early stage startups is you get to work with the founder personally. So just marty@agree.com. And again, free plug for everybody. If you're paying for DocuSign, don't cancel your bill.com invoicing bill. Or if you're doing manual invoices, which I know most of you are, don't do that either. No need to anymore. Yeah, stop. And then me personally, I'm big on Twitter. It's just at Marty Madrid like the city in Spain. I tweet obsessively, and most of it's about business entrepreneurship. So if you want more of these, I'm a big build in public kind of guy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Marty. And thank you guys for joining us today. Please follow along for the Control Alt GAB podcast. I hope you were able to grab some things valuable from today's conversation. So thank you again, Marty. And we will see you guys all next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Control Alt GAB podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you on the next one.